Hi, everyone. I'm Jen T with ARINGO, and I'm super excited to get to share with you guys a little bit about acing the MBA application videos. That's right. You spend a ton of time working on those essays, your resume, but today we're going to be talking about the videos that are required for some of the schools after you get started with submitting your application. What we're going to do here today is have this presentation, but you guys are open to ask any questions in the comment section as we go through the presentation. So please know that I'll be monitoring that as we go and trying to answer questions that maybe are relevant to the slides we're talking about right now. But at the end, we'll also have a Q&A session, so you have time to ask some open-ended questions as well. All right. So again, I'm Jen T with ARINGO, and today we are talking about the videos part of your applications. So as we move through, you'll know that sometimes there are schools that require for you to do these videos, and there's different types. So there's going to be the personal introduction type, like the MIT 60-second intro, or there's like the ones that are from Oxford that are, specific questions that they've come up with that they have you answer via video essay, just typically, which is going to be you talking. So we'll talk about these two different settings of video essays and how you handle and approach both of them. And then afterwards, we'll also talk about what is the admissions committee looking for when they're going through these videos, and then how you should prepare for the typical questions, considering how to set the background for your video. And then we'll go through that Q&A session so that you guys can get your questions answered. All right. So first, I know it kind of started jumping into this, but we're going to talk about that personal introduction video, which is very common at schools like MIT, as well as I think Texas McCombs has it as well. So, there's some schools that essentially want to get to know you better, and they feel like the video is going to be that opportunity for them to say oh, here's their personality. After reading these essays, we get to know them a little bit better. So they usually are going to be a single shot video, usually 60 seconds. They typically are also advising no editing. So, you shouldn't edit the video, anything like that, anything fancy. It really should just be like a one video taken on your camera, whether that's on your phone or on your computer, and you use that and submit it. I would say that these are a little less stressful because they're easy to plan, right? You know what the answers are going to be. And they're a little less common because I think that more schools want to see the next type of responses in a video question as well. So we'll move on and talk about what the admissions committee is looking for. So they are going to be looking at English proficiency. And they want to see that, you have a strong command of the English language, that you are going to be doing well in their MBA program, be able to communicate and understand other people around you. And this is just one of those moments, right? Because you can do all the editing that you want of an essay. You can, take the exams, but really, how are you going to be sitting in the classroom? How are you going to be working in projects with groups, with different people from all over the country? They want to make sure that, or all over the world, and they want to make sure that you are ready to handle those settings. Then they want to see your personality, right? I usually say that an MBA admissions team is curating a class or cohort. And the reason for that is that they want to bring together a lot of different diverse personalities, perspectives, and experiences, and bring them all into a classroom and have you learn from each other. But they want you not to all be the same. So this is your opportunity to show a little bit of that personality in one way or another. They also want to make sure that you know about their program. So some of them will actually have some school-specific questions as part of their process. Sometimes they also want you to be able to think on the fly and be adaptable. And so, if you were thrown a curveball for one of the school's questions, what do you do? Like, do you panic? Do you dig in? Do you, where are you? What happens when you're kind of thrown off a little bit? And then the other thing is, really, did you answer the question? Obviously, nerves play into a lot of this, and the schools know that, right? Like, you're nervous because this is a big part and a big step, and then, your life and your career trajectory. And so they get that, but they also want to make sure that you're answering the question, that you have the ability to comprehend what the question was and give them an answer that makes sense and is additive to the conversation. Then they also want to make sure that there's some congruence with the essays and the resume that you submitted. So some of those questions will also align with that. And then other than that, they're going to look at context clues, right? Like, I could say, like, one of my favorite parts about video essays is like the subtle clues that you can do as a candidate. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit, but they're looking at, eye contact, do you smile, those types of things, what kind of posture do you have? So, those context clues help them understand how you're going to be a candidate and a participant in their cohort. And that's, just a little bit about what they're looking for. Okay, so those videos that are required, the other type is going to be the randomized questions. So typically they're going to have you do this on your laptop or computer, and it's going to be a recorded video session through a platform kind of like Kira. And so how it works is the school will send you a link to submit your application, after you submit your application, they'll send you a link to submit your video and then to do the video essay, and then it is part of your actual application for it to be considered complete. So you'll want to make sure you get this done on time, because it is something that they're going to be looking at the deadline with. And then they'll usually give you about 30 seconds to prepare for each one of the questions. So you have the opportunity to think before you act and organize your thoughts. Some examples of schools that require these randomized question videos are going to be INSEAD, Yale, IESC. So, get prepared, buckle down, and get ready for this. So how do I prepare? A lot of clients are kind of like, what do I do? What do I need to be able to succeed in this environment and be ready for this video essay? And so the best way is to practice and be prepared. Think of the behavioral questions, think of some scenarios, almost like you're preparing for the actual interview itself, right? Like, this is something that we do as part of our coaching for our clients is, you want to go through different leadership scenarios where it's individual leadership, teamwork, or problem solving. And so think of those scenarios ahead of time and be able to think about them from different perspectives. Tell me a time you had to work on a team of diverse members. Okay, that was like super easy, right? Like, okay, so one time I worked on a global team with people from the UK and from India. And one of the biggest things that we had a hard time with was time, like everybody being online at the same time with, 12, 15 hours of time difference. And so with that being said, we were able to establish a routine time period for everybody to communicate and be online. I don't know. I'm just making things up as we go, but these are, opportunities for you to share these examples with the admissions committee. Okay, I don't see any chats yet or any questions, but if you have any, please, again, feel free to put them into the comments section and we can also get those answered as we go. Okay, the other questions that they're going to probably ask are about your profile. They're going to be asking about your background. It can be like, what are like 3 values that are important to you, or tell us about your academic background, or what do you do in your free time, right? They can be those easy open-ended questions, or they can give you some sort of like complex question, like how many golf balls fit in an airplane, right? And how did you arrive at this answer? And so, they might give you some time to think about it in like those 30 seconds. And then you have to figure out how you're going to answer this question and, give them an idea of what you would do to solve this problem. And then there's also the goals, right? Like, tell us about your short-term and long-term goals. You know, why do you want to do this? Why do you need an MBA? And then, you know, how are you going to use this MBA to get to the next step? And why is it important for you? So from there, we can also start talking about here are some legitimate examples that we've pulled from our kind of database. And I'm sure that there's somewhere on GMAT Club that you can probably find these typical video essay questions. On the ARINGO website, we have them kind of listed by schools with some advice as well. So feel free to check out our website, and it's aringo.com. And you can definitely kind of dig down into the typical video essay questions. And so, you know, these are some of them that you can think about. You know, who's your mentor outside of your family and why? I feel like there was, I don't know if we included it or not, but like if you could have dinner with anyone, who would it be and why? And so, you know, be able to think about that and give it some context. Like, yes, you could say somebody like Gandhi or Barack Obama or you know, anybody huge like that, but you can also make it somebody personal, right? It doesn't have to be this, you know, world famous person. It can be somebody who's famous and really valuable to you. And it could be a mentor, it could be a past family member. Well, I guess if it says outside of your family, maybe not, but you know, you can absolutely decide who that is, and you get to determine that, and that's okay, right? Like, it doesn't have to be somebody that everybody is familiar with. So these are just a few of those questions that you would get. Like this one is kind of interesting. Without arts, an education cannot be accomplished. Do you agree or disagree, and why? And so again, they're going to give you that 30 seconds before you need to record your response. So take that time to think about what you want to say. 30 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but it is enough for you to determine what you're going to share with the admissions committee in those videos. All right, so next we're going to talk about the background. So commonly, you always want to make sure that you have, you know, planned your answers and that they align with your application. So you want to review your application before you go through this process to make sure that everything makes sense. So you're kind of setting the tone for yourself of like, okay, this is what I've shared with this school, and you know, these are the type of things I want to kind of make sure I'm projecting. Then you want to choose somewhere that is well lit and that, you know, can be easy for them to hear you and won't have any distractions, people walking by in the background, etc. I would even say, like, even if you are doing this, like maybe in a cubicle at work or like in a public place, even just like, I wouldn't do that, right? Like, I would make sure that it is a place that's really just where you're the only person, because even if you blur your background or change your background settings, sometimes you can see those people behind you, and you don't want anything distracting in these videos, right? You want them to be able to focus on you, not on some weird blur that's happening in the background, or that like when you move your head, something's kind of like flickering or things like that. So you want to test it out before. And they do typically also allow you to, one, practice, two, set up your camera. So you can definitely take your time to make sure everything is, you know, really perfect. The next thing about your recording accessories, I cannot tell you how many times I've had a hard time hearing and understanding somebody because their earbuds are dead or going dead. I would almost recommend like getting the old school plug-in type so that you can guarantee there's never going to be that issue, especially during a live interview when you can't really just step away. But, you know, or you can use the audible, like the speaker on your computer, whatever it might be. But, you know, you want to test it out. You can do a Google call or Zoom meeting or whatever it might be. Test out your audio with a friend before you go through this process. Typically, they may have like a way to test it in the actual portal itself, but by the time you log into the system and you're ready to sit down and do things, you know, you're not going to want to like be running away to find another like device or like another set of headphones. So, go ahead and get that set up ahead of time. Practice with a friend, making sure that the camera and your audio is all set up. The other thing that you can do is have a piece of paper and a pen around. And that would be like, if by chance, especially in the randomized questions, they may give you a scenario and ask you to say, like, how would you promote a product that does X, Y, and Z? And you need to write down those factors so you make sure you're answering that. So, have that pen handy if it's, one of these randomized questions type of video answers. The other thing is to think about what you should wear. And so this is where things kind of diverge a little bit. So if you're doing a personal introduction, like a 60-second introduction video, it's okay to be a little bit more fun and exciting and show a bit more of your personality. So I would say, like, if you were a huge soccer fan or football fan, that you could probably wear your team jersey, right? Like, you can do something that's like fun and exciting and engaging, tells the committee a little bit more about you. But if you're doing a video essay answer question type setup, then you maybe want to skew more towards the professional side. I would say you could have personality, like almost like you would in a video interview, with, a bright color matched with a darker blazer, etc., something like that. But you don't want to go too crazy, because they're kind of using this as a proxy for like a pre-interview. So you want to make sure that you're kind of fitting the setting to what you need to present. So if it is an introduction video, they do give you a little bit more leeway as to how to incorporate the fun. Choosing the background again. So if you're going to be answering questions, then you want a plain background that's not going to be distracting or making somebody look behind you and try to get some context clues. You want them to be focused on you and your answers. If you're doing a personal entry, like an intro video, I mean, like, they tell you to like introduce yourself to the class. So you can definitely show something a little bit different or exciting about your background. I've had clients shoot their video in like their favorite park or their gym. Like, I had a client that started his own chain of gyms. And so he took his video for MIT in the gym itself, so that you could, it's part of his conversation and what he was sharing. Then if you don't necessarily want to be outside or a different place, let's say that you have one of those maps. You have like a world map with the little push pins in it of like where you've been. That, like, even just having the world map is a little bit of something of like saying, like, I'm a global person. But those little pins say like, oh, I've traveled, right? Like, that's just something I'm going to automatically assume when I see a map like that. So, take those context clues, or like a poster of your favorite team. Again, like, if you decide you don't want to wear a jersey, but you're like an avid football fan, or like a tennis fan or something like that, you can put those elements in the background, even like with a racket, kind of behind you or something, to show those elements of who you are. And you can say, I can't wait to get on the tennis court and compete with my friends in a local, in a game or in a match. So you can bring those things up and show a little bit more of your character. All right, so we have some do's and some don'ts. So you do want to plan your answers. Again, there's definitely going to be plenty of banks of questions that you can find for each one of these different schools, what their typical questions are, what their latest questions were, and you can start practicing those. It's no guarantee that you're going to get any of the questions that you might find, but it gives you an idea of what kind of questions they're going to ask. So go ahead and start setting up your answers and thinking of, okay, how would I answer a team question? How would I answer like ethical? That's one of the ones that I've seen actually stump some people in their tracks and say like, oh my gosh, I don't have an ethical situation to share. So, what do I do? I froze. I didn't know what to say. And so think about that. Like, tell us a time when you've had an ethical decision, or your ethics have been questioned or challenged. And, think about that one for sure, because that's a big one that can be asked. in the video essay and sometimes in your interview. So you also want to, again, like start thinking about those stories. And then you want to share something that's not already in the essays or in your resume. Obviously, we want to keep the essence of what you've shared with the committee so that, they know and understand who you are. And this complements that. So you want to share something new, like a new story that you're not already using in an essay. So, think about a way to share new information with the committee. So maybe you've shared professional experiences in those essays, and now you can talk about personal ones. Like I've been on a club sport or being the leader of a volunteer organization, the difficulties that you had in those scenarios, right? So you can think of different parts of your world to share with them. Think about what you want to say and how you want to say it. And that's why they give you that 30 seconds. So you can start thinking of, what do I want to say for the words that are coming out of my mouth, to make sure that I don't say anything that would be weird or awkward, or maybe even, like sometimes things don't translate as well. And so you're searching for a word really quickly, when you're, translating in your mind different languages. So you want to think before you speak. And I know it's so easy to feel like, okay, here's my answer and wanting to get it out, but take the time to think before you speak. And then again, like practice makes perfect. The great thing about this is that you can, kind of practice with yourself and make your own videos on your phone or, any sort of platform. For us, for ARINGO clients, we have kind of like an internal platform that'll flash up the common questions for our clients. And then they're able to record their answers and then go back and review it and kind of reflect and say like, okay, so I get that I didn't do this right, or maybe something was missing, so you have the ability to, really review yourself before you do that. Again, dress professionally. Again, like even if it's a 60-second introduction, you want to make sure that it is professional, right? Like I don't think I really have to say that too much, but, be within, you can be fun and exciting, but also still within those professional guidelines. You don't necessarily have to wear a suit and tie, but if it is the video essay questions, then I would, err on the side of caution and maybe wear one or the other, a tie or a coat, or, a nice button-up shirt, something like that, so that the committee knows that you took it seriously. Then obviously speaking clearly as you go through and speaking slowly so that the committee can hear you and understand you. And think about your body language. So, again, like a lot of this seems like no brainer, but it's good to review because absolutely somebody's done it sometime. And so that's where all of this comes from, cautionary tales. And so if you're like, I had somebody do their video, like practice interview like this, and I'm like, you know what, maybe it projects confidence, but it also is telling me a lot more like you're too laid back, you're too relaxed, and you're too or somebody like they prop their arm up and it's like, this is kind of weird and awkward. Like this doesn't seem like a normal presentation style. You want them to know that you're used to presenting and talking to audiences as well, right? Because that's a big part of the MBA program. So, make sure that your body language is projecting it. Try to sit up. And then lastly, try to smile as you're going through this whole process, because we all know it's stressful, but in the end, it's going to lead to something really amazing. So, all right. So things that you shouldn't do, don't freak out, right? Like you have the time to practice. Don't leave it until the last minute. So make sure that you are calm and ready to go. Don't try to get too fancy. I've had a lot of clients, especially for the 60-second intro, do some things. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, you cannot take a video of yourself riding a unicycle through the park and with a crowd of people in the market, right? Like, you cannot do this. It's great, but it's not what they're looking for, right? Like, there's a point to where the videography is not going to equal admission just because it's something gimmicky or fancy. It's are they really getting to know you, or are you really just too focused on these other things? So again, it's great to show some personality, but don't let that be the focus of your video. And then you want to avoid excessive motion. So I've had some coaching sessions where I've had clients who are talking and they're moving throughout the video because they're just trying to answer the question. And you're like, oh gosh, please stop moving. Like, I'm going to get seasick. So, be careful, be cautious. If your leg bounces when you're nervous, like make sure that you're not connected to the desk and not shaking the camera. But like big, extravagant, gestures are not necessary. And then don't try to have a script because the committee can see that you've done that. Some people do try to have things up on their screen and things like that, but they can kind of see you reading as you're going through. So, try as much as you can to, I wouldn't say even memorize. Like the way that I usually say is like, say the same thing 4 different ways before you go into an interview, right? Like think about like, this is how I want to tell you my story, but I don't want to do it like it's such a rote rehearsal experience. So, make sure that you've got your plan, but it's not so rote that you're just reading from a script and you're telling them everything about your life in such a sad, succinct way. And then the other part is like, let's say that you mess up. The biggest part is how you recover from that. It happens. It happens to everybody. You're human. You can make a mistake and, sometimes you can't try again and you only get this one shot. But the bigger part is how you recover from that mistake. It's okay. Like if you misstep or misspeak, you want to make sure that you recover from it. Don't just dwell on it and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. And spin out. You want to be like, okay, all right, so let's try that again. So this is what I was trying to say, and kind of go from that direction. And then the last thing is I'd love to share that ARINGO is an MBA admissions consulting firm, and we help our clients on a day in, day out basis with their applications. And we can help you with preparing for those video essays, determining what stories and how to frame those stories. So, if you're looking for help with your applications, your essays, these videos, let us know. We're here to help. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to chat more about your profile and get to know more about you. Best of luck in your applications, and we'll see you soon.